Angelica Snowden is a business reporter with The Australian, and she's been in the federal court watching Coles try to fight off the corporate watchdog, the ACCC, in a case over its down discount program. And what exactly is the ACCC accusing Coles of having done? And let's get granular here. I want to hear what they've done with the deodorant and the noodles.
So what the ACCC is alleging is Coles have effectively misled consumers with their down promotion. We all know the promotion, we know the jingle. It's impossible to get out of your head. One of the examples that first off the bat was used in court on Monday when the ACCC opened their case was a discussion about a can of dog food. We can all relate to that. If we have pets, we need to buy those. So what they said was for a period of 296 days, this can of Nature's Gift wet dog food was advertised for $4. For a short period of time, it increased in price to $6, and then immediately afterwards was placed on the down program and advertised at $4.50. So you can see here what the ACCC are saying is that actually the price has not dropped significantly, and it's in fact more. The price is actually more than the original $4.
And of course, Coles would argue that the price of everything is going up, that they have absorbed price rises on a whole lot of products, but they can't keep doing that forever.
That's exactly what they're arguing, that we're experiencing intense inflation, so they're battling with that. They're also battling suppliers, on the other hand, who are negotiating with them about price increases as well. So you can see the push and pull that they're dealing with here, but ultimately the ACCC is pushing this case. It first launched about 18 months ago, and now they're fighting it out in the federal court.
It's interesting, isn't it, Ange? I don't know about you, but I walk around the supermarket kind of ignoring the discount signs because I'm a bit cynical about them. I don't really think that often they are real discounts. And if you look closely, it might be 15 cents or 5 cents that is the discount that's being advertised. What do you think? Do consumers really expect that a discount sticker means something these days?
I would have agreed with you, Claire. However, this case is very interesting because the ACCC was actually tipped off by consumers, in particular on social media, who were tracking these strange price fluctuations. And what we saw when we were doing our research into this case, a year and a half ago, is that there are a number of social media videos about consumers who have tracked the price, for example, with the Tim Tams or the dog food in this case.
Check Coles out. It was $12. It's now $10 from $7.50.
We basically have social media investigators examining really closely the price changes and how they compare with what Coles are telling us is being discounted. And it makes sense. We have seen huge price increases across groceries, across everyday household items. It makes sense to me that consumers would be keeping a very close eye on claims like these.
When the corporate watchdog goes after a company for doing anything, any breach of consumer law, one option for the company is to settle that and go into negotiations, agree to pay some sort of penalty, say that they're sorry, make it all go away. That hasn't happened in this instance. Do you know why? Did Coles try to settle this out of court?
I think the issue is that the parties are too far away from each other. And frankly, this is a very good opportunity for the ACCC to really show its teeth, particularly on this issue. I don't know if they had attempted to settle prior, but as I understand it from listening to 2 days of court hearings so far, that the question is very simple for the court to determine, which is what did the tickets convey and was it misleading? And clearly the ACCC and Coles are at a loggerhead about whether or not it was.
Does the ACCC have to prove that Coles had an intention to deceive, or just that the effect of them for the ordinary reasonable shopper was that they were misleading?
They have to prove that the ordinary and reasonable shopper was misled by the claims. What Coles say in their defence is that the price drops were fair dinkum. These are words that we heard in the federal court. They say the price drops were genuine, they were fair dinkum. So if we take the tin of dog food example, the tin started at $6 and it dropped to $4.50. They say this was a genuine price drop and therefore the ordinary consumer would think, fine, it's on sale.
This is big business. These are some of the most powerful companies in the Australian marketplace. They, of course, have, I'm sure, pretty watertight contracts with their staff and their internal communications are all locked up. It seems, though, that the ACCC has got access to some internal Coles documents. How did they get those and what are they showing?
We haven't seen the internal documents yet, but we know, as I said, this investigation started off with consumer tips. What we know is that the ACCC exercised its right to conduct a really thorough investigation. And from the documents that I have seen that track the differences in price and price drops for about 260 products, 250 products for Coles over a period of 18 months, there's forensic tracking of fluctuations and volatility in prices. On Monday, what was discussed in court were internal emails that were exchanged between Coles staff members. The context of that is that they were aware of Woolworths engaging in similar conduct, and effectively they were really concerned that they wouldn't be able to compete with Woolworths if their price drops were happening as quickly and as widespread as they were. So in one example, we saw a Coles staff member actually asking another colleague if they should alert the ACCC to this conduct. However, instead, what they sought to do was ramp up, I guess, the rate at which they would add products to their down program.
I'm so glad you mentioned Woolies because it's the 2-year anniversary nearly, Ange, of the 2024 moment when Brad Banducci kind of blew up his career on television. This was the former chief executive. He was doing an interview with the ABC and he was asked about some comments from a former competition watchdog, Rod Sims, about Coles and Woolies being allegedly anti-competitive. Brad Banducci had a go at him and then he tried to retract those comments, and when he wasn't allowed to retract them, he stormed out of the interview.
Okay, can we take that out? Is that okay? He is retired, but I shouldn't have said that, Angus. Are we going to leave it in there if we are?
Well, if we're on the record. You said it. Let's move on. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I'm done, guys. I do this with good intent. I don't do this with bad intent. No.
You're walking out, really?
No. Can we just talk through Brad for a sec?
Very shortly afterwards, he left his role as CEO of Woolworths. But Woolworths is also very much in the frame of the ACCC. So where are those proceedings against Woolworths at? And are they basically accused of doing the same thing?
Woolworths are accused of doing essentially the same thing across a range of everyday items, similar time period. They have also been accused of misleading consumers, but with their prices dropped program. Woolies are really going to be sweating on this one, Claire. It's a big deal. There's big money involved here. They're not in the courtroom yet, but due to start in late April, early May.
Yeah, and there's also a class action going on against both these supermarkets brought by consumers who reckon they've been ripped off. How are the courts handling the fact that there's these other lawsuits going on at the same time?
Yes, they're being heard at the exact same time because, as I understand it, their allegations are very similar. So they're running at the exact same. So Coles, for example, the ACCC case is live, as is the class action against Coles, and that's what I understand to be happening with Woolies too.
Lots of lawyers, lots of money.
The lawyers always win, as they say.
Let's talk about the stakes here for Coles and, of course, for Woolworths and every other retailer in the Australian marketplace. The supermarkets have had a rough kind of decade or so. First, they introduced milk for just $1, which saw farmers accuse them of ripping them off. During COVID, people were fighting each other in the supermarket aisles for toilet paper. And they've had turnover of chief executives for some of the reasons we've mentioned above. How does this compare, do you think, in terms of reputational risk for Coles and Woolies?
It's a really interesting question, and I will never forget the footage of people fighting over toilet paper, by the way, during COVID. Stuck in my mind forever. But this question about reputational risk is very interesting. I was just discussing it with a colleague who pointed out to me that Coles compared to Woolworths share price over the last couple of months is outperforming Woolies. So when you talk about reputational risk, I guess the market isn't too concerned with these allegations at the moment. But what will be very interesting is the outcome of the case. Should the federal court find that consumers were misled by the Down Down program, it seems to me that would cause a fair bit of reputational damage, given how widespread this program is. We all know the program, the Down Down jingle, as I said. So I would say they're at risk of reputational damage.
The ACCC is an independent agency, of course, but this is a great look for the federal government, which wants consumers, taxpayers to think that they care about the cost of living, that government agencies are doing everything that they can to make sure shoppers get a fair deal. Gina Cass-Gottlieb is the head of the ACCC, and she came into the job saying she was going to go after petrol retailers and supermarkets. How do you think she's shaping up in this role, and how is business responding to this kind of campaign of terror that she's running?
I think Gina Cass-Gottlieb has shown over the last 18 months, 2 years in particular, that the ACCC is prepared to take big business identities, individuals to court if they believe they are doing the wrong thing and they have a strong enough case. They're not afraid to attempt to prosecute them. This is a pretty big change from a few years before that, I suppose, when regulators like the ACCC were copping a lot of criticism about failing to take crooks to court and to challenge potential wrongdoing that members of the community had seen. I think for Gina Cass-Gottlieb in particular, she's the chair of the competition watchdog, which is really a watchdog for the everyday man and woman and the mums and dads who are walking down the aisles of Coles and Woolies trying to reduce the cost of their weekly shops, for example. So I think they need to show that they are doing something about concerns that the community has and that they can act on them.
Angelica Snowden, thank you very much.
Thank you.